Emergency blood needed for twins. The CEO ran in, expecting a stranger, but seeing his ex in labor, his heart stopped cold. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. Alexander Pierce slammed his fist on the mahogany desk, making his executive assistant jump. The quarterly report showed another record profit, but the board was still pressuring him for more. More expansion, more cuts, more sacrifices from the workforce that had built Meridian Pharmaceuticals into the empire it was today. A headache pulsed behind his eyes as he loosened his Italian silk tie. The corner office on the 42nd floor offered a panoramic view of the city skyline, the ultimate symbol of success. Yet lately it felt more like a glass prison than an achievement. "Mr. Pierce?" His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Your 3 o'clock with the marketing team is waiting in the conference room." Alex sighed, checking his Patek Philippe watch. "Tell them I'll be there in 5. He gathered the necessary files, mentally preparing for another pointless meeting where creative ideas would be sacrificed on the altar of profit margins. The boardroom buzzed with nervous energy when he entered, conversations halting mid-sentence. 8 impeccably dressed executives straightened in their chairs, their eager smiles not quite reaching their eyes. Alex had earned a reputation for ruthless efficiency over the past 5 years as CEO. The company stock had tripled on his watch, but so had employee turnover. "Let's make this quick," he began, not bothering with pleasantries. "The European launch is in 6 weeks, and frankly, I'm not impressed with what I've seen so far." His phone vibrated in his pocket. Once, twice, 3 times. Alex ignored it. He had a strict no-interruptions policy during meetings. The device fell silent, then immediately started vibrating again. Whoever was calling was persistent. Irritation flashed across his face as he pulled out the phone to silence it, but the screen gave him pause. Hospital. Not just any hospital, but St. Agnes Medical Center. A cold sensation washed over him. "Excuse me," he said abruptly, rising from his chair. "Continue without me." He strode into the hallway, his heart pounding as he returned the call. "This is Alexander Pierce." "Mr. Pierce, this is Dr. Sharma from St. Agnes Medical Center. I'm calling because you're listed as an emergency contact for Emma Reynolds." Emma. The name hit him like a physical blow. 5 years since he'd heard it spoken aloud, though not a day passed when he didn't think of her. "What happened? Is she all right?" The words tumbled out before he could compose himself. "Ms. Reynolds has been admitted in active labor with twins. She's experiencing complications, severe preeclampsia and signs of placental abruption. We're preparing for an emergency C-section." Twins. Emma was having twins. The information struck him as surreal, disconnected from reality. "I'm sorry, but why are you calling me?" Alex asked, his voice strained. "We've been separated for years. Sir, the situation is critical. We need matching blood for transfusion. Ms. Reynolds has a rare blood type, AB negative, and our supplies are dangerously low. According to her medical records, you share this blood type. She's losing blood faster than we can replace it." The world seemed to tilt beneath his feet. "She needs my blood?" "Yes, and quickly. The babies are in distress, and Ms. Reynolds' condition is deteriorating. Every minute counts." Alex's mind raced. Emma, pregnant with twins, fighting for her life. Emma, who had walked away from him years ago, leaving nothing but a handwritten note and a void no amount of success could fill. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said, already moving toward the elevator. "Mr. Pierce, one more thing," the doctor added, his voice grave. "Ms. Reynolds doesn't know we've contacted you. In her condition, she was unable to provide current emergency contacts, and yours was the only compatible blood type in her records." Of course she wouldn't have listed him. Why would she? Their parting had been final, a clean break that left no room for reconciliation. Yet here he was, about to rush to her side when she needed him most, perhaps the only time she would ever need him again. "Understood," Alex replied tersely. He texted his assistant, "Medical emergency. Cancel all meetings for the rest of the day." The elevator descended swiftly, each floor bringing him closer to a past he'd tried desperately to bury under work and achievement. The drive to St. Agnes was a blur of honking horns and red lights as Alex pushed his Aston Martin to its limits. His knuckles whitened around the steering wheel as memories of Emma flooded back. Her laugh, bright and infectious. The constellation of freckles across her nose that she hated but he adored. The way she'd challenge him when everyone else cowered, fearless in her convictions. They had met in this very hospital 6 years ago. She, a dedicated social worker, he, the newly appointed COO, visiting a board member after surgery. She had mistaken him for a lost visitor and offered directions, unimpressed by his designer suit and commanding presence. It had taken him 3 attempts to convince her to have coffee with him, and another 2 months to get her to admit they were actually dating. For 18 months, Emma had been the counterbalance to his ambition, the compassionate heart to his calculating mind. Until the promotion to CEO, the 80-hour work weeks, the missed anniversaries, and the growing silence between them. Until the morning he awoke to find her gone, a note on her pillow simply saying, "We want different lives. Don't try to find me." He hadn't tried. Pride and hurt had prevented him. Instead, he'd channeled everything into Meridian, becoming the corporate titan everyone expected, accumulating wealth and power that meant nothing when he returned to his empty penthouse each night. Alex screeched into the hospital parking lot, abandoning his car in the emergency zone. He sprinted through the automatic doors, the antiseptic smell hitting him with a wave of déjà vu. "Emma Reynolds," he told the startled receptionist, his voice commanding. "I'm here for the blood transfusion." "Sir, you need to call Dr. Sharma. Now." The edge in his voice left no room for argument. Moments later, a nurse was escorting him to the blood collection area. "You arrived just in time," she said, her eyes reflecting the urgency of the situation. "The doctor will brief you while we take your blood." As the needle slid into his vein, Alex stared at the crimson liquid filling the bag. His blood, flowing out of him to save Emma and her babies, children who could have been his in another life, another reality where he had made different choices. "Mr. Pierce," Dr. Sharma approached, his surgical cap and mask hanging around his neck. "Thank you for coming so quickly. Ms. Reynolds' condition is stabilizing, but we're not out of the woods. The next few hours will be critical." "When can I see her?" The question surprised even Alex himself. The doctor hesitated. "She's being prepped for surgery now. Perhaps afterward, if she's willing." If she's willing. The words hung in the air like a judgment. Why would she want to see him? The man who had put career before love, ambition before happiness. "The father of the babies," Alex began, the words bitter in his mouth. "Is he here?" "No," Dr. Sharma replied, his expression unreadable. "Ms. Reynolds arrived by ambulance alone. She was barely conscious." Alone. Emma was facing this alone. The thought twisted in his chest like a knife. The blood collection process took less than 15 minutes, but to Alex it felt like hours. Each second that ticked by on the wall clock was another moment Emma spent in danger. Dr. Sharma had left to prepare for the C-section, leaving Alex with his racing thoughts and a paper cup of orange juice that did little to quell the lightheadedness from his blood donation. "You should eat something," a nurse advised, handing him a granola bar. "And take it easy for the next few hours. No strenuous activity." Alex nodded mechanically, his mind elsewhere. The waiting room buzzed with the usual hospital activity. Worried families, overworked staff, the occasional squawk of a pager, but he registered none of it. Instead, he found himself obsessively checking the double doors that led to the surgical wing, willing them to open with news of Emma. "Excuse me," he approached the nurse's station after 30 minutes of agonized waiting. "I'm Alexander Pierce. I donated blood for Emma Reynolds. Is there any update on her condition?" The nurse tapped at her computer. "Ms. Reynolds is still in surgery, sir. That's all I can tell you right now. I understand privacy concerns, but I'm her emergency contact. He lied smoothly, employing the same authoritative tone that closed million-dollar deals. I need to know what's happening. The nurse hesitated, then her expression softened slightly. The surgery is proceeding as expected. Dr. Sharma is one of our best. If you'd like to wait, the surgical waiting area is down that hallway. Alex thanked her and followed her directions, finding himself in a smaller, quieter room with soft lighting and uncomfortable chairs. A television mounted in the corner played a cooking show with the volume muted. He sank into a chair, loosening his tie completely and running a hand through his meticulously styled hair, not caring that it now stood in disheveled spikes. His phone buzzed with messages from work, the marketing team seeking direction, his assistant asking about tomorrow's schedule, the board chair requesting a call. He ignored them all. For the first time in years, Meridian Pharmaceuticals seemed utterly inconsequential. Instead, he found himself scrolling to a contact he hadn't deleted but had never used. Emma Reynolds. Her smiling face looked back at him from the profile picture, a snapshot from a weekend trip to the coast, her auburn hair whipping in the sea breeze, her green eyes squinting against the sun. He'd taken that photo. She'd been laughing at something he'd said, one of those rare, perfect moments when everything in the world felt right. He was so absorbed in the memory that he didn't notice the doctor's approach until a shadow fell across him. "Mr. Pierce," Dr. Sharma said, removing his surgical cap. His expression gave nothing away. "The C-section is complete. Both babies have been delivered and taken to the NICU." "And Emma?" Alex asked, his voice barely audible. "Stable for now. Your blood donation arrived just in time. She lost a significant amount of blood, but we've managed to control the hemorrhaging." The doctor's face showed the fatigue of someone who had been fighting a battle against time. "The next 24 hours will be critical, both for Ms. Reynolds and the twins." Alex exhaled shakily, only then realizing he'd been holding his breath. "The babies, are they all right?" "They're premature at 34 weeks, which presents challenges. The first baby, a boy, is doing relatively well considering the circumstances. The second, a girl, is smaller and having more difficulty breathing. Our neonatal team is working with them now. Twins, a boy and a girl." The information hit Alex with unexpected force. Somewhere in this hospital were two tiny humans who had been fighting to enter the world, oblivious to the drama surrounding their arrival. "When can I see Emma?" he asked. Dr. Sharma studied him carefully. "She's in recovery now. Once she's moved to a private room and conscious enough for visitors, a nurse will come for you. But Mr. Pierce," he added, his tone serious, "I should warn you that she might be disoriented from the anesthesia and medications. And as I mentioned earlier, she doesn't know we contacted you." Alex nodded, understanding the implication. Emma might not want him there when she woke up. "I'll take my chances," he said quietly. An hour later, a nurse appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Pierce, Ms. Reynolds has been moved to room 412. She's still groggy, but you can see her briefly." Alex followed the nurse through a labyrinth of corridors, his heart pounding harder with each step. What would he say to her? What could he possibly say after 5 years of silence? The nurse paused outside room 412. "Just a few minutes," she cautioned. "She needs rest." Alex nodded, took a deep breath, and stepped into the dimly lit room. The steady beep of monitors created a rhythmic background to the scene before him. Emma, pale and small in the hospital bed, her auburn hair spread across the pillow in stark contrast to her ashen complexion. IV lines ran into her arms, and a nasal cannula provided oxygen. She looked fragile, vulnerable, so different from the vibrant, fiery woman who had once challenged his every assumption about life and love. He approached silently, afraid to disturb her sleep, and sank into the chair beside her bed. Up close, he could see the changes 5 years had brought. Fine lines at the corners of her eyes, a new smattering of freckles across her cheekbones, her face thinner than he remembered. Yet she was undeniably, heartbreakingly Emma. Her eyelids fluttered, then opened halfway, revealing those familiar green eyes, now clouded with medication and confusion. "Alex?" Her voice was a raspy whisper, as if she couldn't trust what she was seeing. "I'm here," he said simply, resisting the urge to take her hand. She blinked slowly, struggling to focus. "My babies. They're in the NICU, a boy and a girl. They're getting the best care." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I need to see them." "Soon," he promised. "You need to recover first." She seemed to be processing his presence with difficulty, her drug-addled mind struggling to reconcile the reality before her. Why are you here?" "The hospital called me. You needed blood." Understanding dawned slowly on her face. "AB negative," she murmured. "I forgot you were in my records." "Lucky coincidence," he said, attempting a smile that felt stiff and unnatural. Emma's eyes began to close, the medications pulling her back toward sleep. "The twins," she murmured. "Julian and Lily, I already named them." Julian and Lily. The names sent an inexplicable pang through Alex's chest. "Beautiful names," he managed to say, but Emma had already drifted off, her breathing deep and even. Alex sat motionless beside her, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest, listening to the steady beep of the monitors. The rational part of his brain, the CEO who made ruthless decisions based on data and profit projections, told him to leave now. He'd done what was needed. His blood was flowing through her veins, helping to keep her alive. There was no reason to stay, to complicate things further. But something stronger held him in place, something that had nothing to do with logic or reason. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. A different nurse peered in. "Mr. Pierce, you asked to be notified when you could visit the NICU." Alex rose quietly, casting one last glance at Emma's sleeping form before following the nurse to see the twins. Julian and Lily. Children who were never meant to be part of his life, yet who now seemed inexplicably connected to him by more than just the blood they shared. The nurse led him through security doors to the neonatal intensive care unit, a hushed environment of softly beeping monitors and incubators. "They're here," she said, stopping at two adjacent incubators labeled Baby Boy Reynolds and Baby Girl Reynolds. Alex stood transfixed before the incubators, staring at the two tiny beings inside. Julian, the boy, was slightly larger, his skin a healthier pink. A nest of dark hair covered his head, and despite the tubes and monitors attached to his small body, he seemed to be resting peacefully. Lily, by contrast, looked alarmingly fragile. Her skin had a translucent quality, veins visible beneath the surface, and her chest worked visibly with each breath despite the ventilator assisting her. "Can I?" Alex's voice failed him momentarily. "Can I touch them?" The NICU nurse gave him a compassionate smile. "You can place your hand through the porthole here," she demonstrated on Julian's incubator. "Just make sure to use the hand sanitizer first." Alex rubbed the antiseptic gel thoroughly into his hands, then slowly, with a gentleness he hadn't known he possessed, reached in to touch Julian's tiny hand. The baby's fingers reflexively curled around his pinky, and something shifted seismically in Alex's chest, a tectonic movement of emotion he was wholly unprepared for. "That's the grasp reflex," the nurse explained softly. "But I like to think it means they know someone who loves them is here. Someone who loves them." The words echoed strangely in Alex's mind. These weren't his children. He had no claim to them, no right to the overwhelming surge of protectiveness that washed over him as he moved to Lily's incubator and gently stroked her arm, impossibly thin and delicate. "How are they doing, really?" he asked the nurse, his eyes not leaving Lily's face. "They're fighters, both of them," she answered. "The boy's stats are strong. The girl has some respiratory distress, which is common in premature twins, but she's responding well to treatment. And Emma, Ms. Reynolds, When will she be able to see them? Hopefully tomorrow, if her recovery stays on track. We can bring her in a wheelchair once she's stable enough. Alex nodded, reluctantly withdrawing his hand from Lily's incubator. I'd like to stay a while longer, if that's all right. Of course, the nurse replied. There's a rocking chair over there if you'd like to sit. The babies can sense your presence, even if they can't see you clearly yet. Alex settled into the chair, his gaze alternating between the two incubators. As he sat in the hushed quiet of the NICU, broken only by the soft beeping of monitors and the occasional murmur of medical staff, memories of Emma flooded back with painful clarity. Their relationship had begun like a fairy tale, the ambitious executive and the idealistic social worker, opposites who complemented each other perfectly. Emma had shown him a world beyond profit margins and shareholder value, introducing him to the community outreach programs she ran for disadvantaged families. He'd been humbled by her dedication, her ability to see the person behind every statistic, every case file. In return, he'd brought stability and excitement to her life, weekend getaways to places she'd only dreamed of visiting, connections that helped expand her outreach programs, a partner who admired her compassion and drive. For a year and a half, they'd balanced each other, creating a relationship that seemed unbreakable. Then came the offer to become CEO of Meridian. The board had made it clear what they expected, nothing less than his complete devotion to transforming the company into an industry leader. The hours grew longer, the pressure more intense. Nights when he crawled into bed at 2 a.m., only to rise again at 5. Weekends spent in the office instead of with Emma. Vacations canceled at the last minute due to unavoidable business emergencies. Emma had been patient, understanding, until she wasn't. He remembered their last real conversation, 3 days before she left. "I'm losing you, Alex," she'd said, her voice more sad than angry. "Every day, a little more of you disappears into that company. It's temporary," he'd assured her, not even looking up from his laptop. "Once the restructuring is complete, things will calm down." "You said that 6 months ago, and 6 months before that." She'd sat beside him on the couch, gently closing his laptop. "Look at me, Alex. When was the last time you really looked at me?" He had looked then, really looked, and seen the exhaustion in her eyes, the resignation. "I'm doing this for us," he'd insisted, "for our future." "What future?" she'd asked quietly. "The one where we're both too old and tired to enjoy the wealth you've accumulated? The one where we've forgotten how to talk to each other about anything except your next business trip? You're being dramatic. It's not that bad. Isn't it? You've missed my birthday, our anniversary, the opening of the new youth center I spent 2 years planning. Last week you called me Jennifer on the phone, your assistant's name." He had winced at the memory. "That was a mistake. I was exhausted." "No, the mistake was thinking we could make this work." She had risen from the couch, tears in her eyes. "I love you, Alex, but I can't compete with Meridian, and I'm tired of trying." He should have gone after her then, should have recognized the finality in her voice. Instead, he'd opened his laptop again, convinced he could fix things once the quarter ended, once the new product launched, once. But there had been no once. 3 days later, she was gone, leaving nothing but a note and the echo of opportunities missed. For weeks afterward, pride had kept him from calling her, from admitting she might have been right. Then weeks became months, and the silence between them calcified into something impenetrable. He had channeled his grief into work, becoming the ruthless CEO the board had wanted, earning accolades and enemies in equal measure as he drove Meridian to unprecedented success. And now here he was, 5 years later, sitting beside the incubators of her children she had created with someone else, a life she had built without him. "Mr. Pierce?" Alex startled from his reverie to find a different nurse standing beside him. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's a situation with Ms. Reynolds. Her blood pressure has spiked dangerously high and she's asking for you." Alarm shot through him. "Is she all right?" The doctor is with her now. She's quite agitated, and in her condition that's concerning. She keeps saying she needs to see the babies, and she's asking for you specifically." Alex rose immediately. "Take me to her." He cast one last glance at the twins, an unspoken promise passing between them, before following the nurse back to Emma's room. The scene that greeted him was chaotic. Emma, half sitting in bed, her face flushed with distress, arguing with Dr. Sharma and another nurse. "I need to see my babies," she was insisting, her voice hoarse but determined. "You don't understand." "Emma," Alex said, stepping forward. She turned at the sound of his voice, relief flooding her face. "Alex, tell them I need to see Julian and Lily. They don't understand." He moved to her bedside, instinctively taking her hand. "I've just come from the NICU. They're doing well, both of them. Julian is strong, and Lily is getting the help she needs with her breathing." "You saw them?" The desperation in her eyes softened slightly. "Yes. They're beautiful, Emma." He squeezed her hand gently. "But you need to rest and recover so you can be with them. Your blood pressure is too high right now." Dr. Sharma nodded approvingly behind Emma's back. "Listen to Mr. Pierce, Ms. Reynolds. Your babies need you healthy." Emma's grip on Alex's hand tightened. "Don't leave," she whispered, vulnerability naked in her expression. "Please, I can't do this alone." The plea hit him like a physical blow. 5 years of silence, of moving in separate orbits, yet here she was, asking for him as if no time had passed, as if he were still her person, the one she turned to when the world became too much to bear alone. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised, and meant it with a certainty that surprised him. Dr. Sharma administered a mild sedative through Emma's IV, and gradually her agitation subsided. Her eyelids grew heavy, but she fought to keep them open, her gaze fixed on Alex as if afraid he would vanish the moment she closed her eyes. "Stay," she murmured again, her voice slurring slightly. "I'm right here," he assured her, settling into the chair beside her bed. "Rest now. I'll be here when you wake up." As Emma drifted into sleep, her hand still clasped in his, Alex found himself studying her face, committing each detail to memory as if seeing her for the first time. The delicate arch of her eyebrows, the faint constellation of freckles across her nose, the small scar on her chin from a childhood fall. His thumb traced absent circles on the back of her hand, a gesture so familiar it seemed his body remembered what his mind had tried to forget. Morning arrived with the soft clatter of a breakfast tray and the quiet efficiency of a nurse checking vital signs. Alex awoke with a start, momentarily disoriented by the hospital surroundings. He had spent the night in the chair beside Emma's bed, drifting in and out of fitful sleep, his body protesting the uncomfortable position, but his mind unwilling to leave her side. Emma was still sleeping, her face peaceful now, color returning to her cheeks. The nurse nodded approvingly at the monitors. "Her stats are much better this morning," she whispered to Alex. "The doctor will be by shortly for rounds." Alex checked his watch, 6:30 a.m. He had 6 missed calls from his assistant and a dozen urgent emails, but they would have to wait. Instead, he slipped out to find coffee, returning with 2 cups just as Emma was beginning to stir. She opened her eyes slowly, confusion flickering across her face as she registered his presence. "You stayed," she said, her voice rough with sleep. "I promised I would." Alex offered her a cup. "I remembered you take it with cream, no sugar." A ghost of a smile touched her lips as she accepted the coffee. "Some things don't change." She took a cautious sip, then set the cup aside. "The babies. I checked on them an hour ago. They had a good night. Julian might be able to try feeding today." Relief softened her features. "Thank you. For checking on them. For staying. For—" She gestured vaguely at the room, seemingly at a loss for words. "The blood transfusion?" Alex supplied. "You'd have done the same." An awkward silence stretched between them, 5 years of unspoken words creating an almost tangible barrier. Emma was the first to break it. "Alex, why did you really come? The hospital needed your blood, yes, but you could have donated and left. You didn't have to stay." The question demanded honesty he wasn't sure he was ready to give. "I don't know," he admitted finally. "When they called and said you were here, that you needed help, I didn't think. I just came." She studied him with those penetrating green eyes that had always seen through his corporate facade. "That doesn't sound like the Alexander Pierce who runs Meridian Pharmaceuticals with an iron fist. You've been keeping tabs on me?" He couldn't hide his surprise. "It's hard not to. Your face is on the business section every other week." A hint of the old Emma showed in her wry smile. The industry's most eligible bachelor CEO, according to Forbes. Alex winced. "You shouldn't believe everything you read." "I don't," she said simply. "But I do wonder sometimes if you found what you were looking for." The question struck too close to home, revealing the emptiness that had become his constant companion. Before he could formulate a response, Dr. Sharma entered, saving him from having to answer. "Good morning, Ms. Reynolds. How are you feeling today?" "Ready to see my babies," Emma replied immediately. The doctor checked her chart, nodding with satisfaction. "Your blood pressure has stabilized and your labs look much better. If you continue to improve this morning, we can arrange a visit to the NICU this afternoon." Emma's face lit up with joy so pure it was almost painful to witness. "Thank you, doctor." After a brief examination, Dr. Sharma turned to Alex. "Mr. Pierce, could I have a word with you in the hallway?" Alex followed him out, an uneasy feeling settling in his stomach. "Is something wrong with the twins?" "Actually, I wanted to discuss Ms. Reynolds' care after discharge. She'll need significant support during her recovery, especially with premature twins who may require extended NICU stays. Do you know if there's family who can assist her?" The question caught Alex off guard. He realized with a jolt that he knew nothing about Emma's life now, whether her parents were still in Arizona, if she had maintained the close circle of friends she'd had during their relationship, or if there was a partner who should have been there but wasn't. "I'm not sure," he admitted. "We haven't been in contact for several years." Dr. Sharma's expression remained professionally neutral. "I see. Well, perhaps you could discuss it with her when appropriate. The Social Services Department can also provide resources if needed." Alex nodded, but as the doctor walked away, he found himself increasingly troubled by the absent father of Emma's twins. Who was he? And more importantly, where was he when Emma needed him most? When he returned to the room, Emma was sitting up straighter, attempting to brush her tangled hair with her fingers. "Let me help," Alex offered, retrieving a brush from her overnight bag beside the bed. She hesitated, then turned slightly, allowing him to gently work through the auburn waves. The simple act felt strangely intimate, a throwback to lazy Sunday mornings in another lifetime. "The doctor asked about your support system," he said carefully, keeping his tone neutral. "For when you're discharged." Emma stiffened almost imperceptibly. "I'll manage." "Emma?" He set the brush down, moving to face her. "Where is he? The father of your babies?" Pain flashed across her face, followed quickly by a defensive mask he recognized from their worst arguments, the one she wore when trying to protect herself from hurt. "Gone," she said flatly. "Richard left 3 months ago when I refused to terminate the pregnancy. He wasn't interested in being a father, especially to twins." White-hot anger surged through Alex. "He abandoned you when you were 6 months pregnant?" "He made his choice. I made mine." The steel in her voice was familiar, the same determination that had drawn him to her years ago. "I don't need your pity, Alex." "It's not pity," he said sharply. "It's—" He stopped, unsure how to define the turbulent emotions churning inside him. "You shouldn't have to do this alone." "I've been alone for 5 years," she replied, the simple statement landing like a blow. "I've learned to manage." The unspoken accusation hung between them. "You left me alone too." Before Alex could respond, Emma's breakfast tray arrived, followed by a lactation consultant to discuss pumping breast milk for the twins. He took the opportunity to step out, needing space to process the revelation about the twins' father and his own complicated reaction to it. In the hospital cafeteria, he ordered a breakfast he couldn't taste, mechanically chewing while checking the flood of messages on his phone. The board was in an uproar over his unexpected absence. His assistant was fielding calls from investors, and the marketing team was awaiting urgent approvals for the European launch. Under normal circumstances, these demands would have sent him rushing back to the office, prioritizing Meridian above all else. But now, they seemed distant, almost trivial compared to the drama unfolding upstairs. Emma, fighting to recover from a traumatic birth. Julian and Lily, tiny and vulnerable in their incubators. And Richard, the nameless, faceless coward who had walked away from his responsibilities. Alex made a few brief calls, delegating the most critical decisions and rescheduling everything else. "I'll be unavailable for the rest of the day," he told his bewildered assistant. "Possibly tomorrow as well. Family emergency." Family. The word slipped out automatically, though it wasn't accurate. Emma and the twins weren't his family, not really. Yet somewhere in the primal part of his brain, something had shifted, recategorizing them as his to protect, his to care for. When he returned to Emma's room, he found her being prepared for her first visit to the NICU. A nurse was helping her into a wheelchair while providing instructions about the protocols for visiting premature infants. "Alex," Emma said, relief evident in her voice. "I was afraid you'd left." "Just making some calls," he assured her. "Are you going to see the twins?" She nodded, her excitement palpable despite her physical discomfort. "Will you come with me?" "Of course," he replied without hesitation. "Wild horses couldn't keep me away." The journey to the NICU was slow, Emma wincing with each bump and turn as the wheelchair navigated the hospital corridors. Alex walked beside her, hyper-aware of her fragility and determination. She had always been the strongest person he knew, not in physical prowess, but in sheer force of will. Seeing her reduced to this, pale in pain, being wheeled to meet the children whose father had abandoned them, awakened something fiercely protective in him. At the NICU entrance, they were instructed to wash thoroughly and don fresh gowns. Emma struggled to stand at the sink, and Alex supported her without comment, understanding her need for independence even as her body betrayed her limitations. "Ready?" he asked when they were properly scrubbed and gowned. She nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I've been ready since the moment I knew they existed." The nurse wheeled her to Julian's incubator first. "Would you like to hold him? He's stable enough for kangaroo care now." Emma's hands trembled as she reached toward her son. The nurse expertly transferred the tiny boy to Emma's chest, arranging blankets to maintain his temperature while keeping the monitoring wires untangled. "Hello, Julian," Emma whispered, her voice breaking as she cradled her son against her heart. "I'm your mom." Alex stood slightly apart, witnessing the raw emotion of the moment, feeling simultaneously essential and extraneous. He wasn't part of this family unit, yet circumstances had thrust him into this most intimate of scenes. After 15 precious minutes with Julian, Emma reluctantly allowed the nurse to return him to his incubator. Her eyes immediately sought out Lily's smaller form in the adjacent unit. "Can I hold her too?" she asked, her voice tentative. The NICU nurse shook her head gently. "Not just yet. Her breathing is still too unstable, but you can touch her through the porthole." Emma's disappointment was palpable as the wheelchair was positioned beside Lily's incubator. She reached in carefully, her fingers lightly stroking her daughter's tiny arm. "She's so small," Emma whispered, tears streaming freely now. "Will she be okay?" "She's receiving the best possible care," the nurse assured her. "Premature twins often have one baby who's stronger than the other, but Lily is showing good signs of improvement already." Alex moved closer, placing a supportive hand on Emma's shoulder. She's a fighter, like her mother. Emma looked up at him, gratitude and something deeper shining through her tears. For a moment, they were connected again by an invisible thread of shared emotion, the years of separation momentarily suspended. The moment was broken by the arrival of Dr. Lakshmi, the neonatologist, who introduced herself and began explaining the twins' condition in more detail. Julian is doing remarkably well for his gestational age. He's maintaining his temperature and showing good respiratory function. If he continues this way, we might be able to move him to a standard crib within a week. And Lily? Emma asked anxiously. Lily is facing more challenges, which isn't unusual for the smaller twin. Her lungs need more time to develop, and we're monitoring her closely for other complications common in premature infants. The doctor's expression was kind but serious. The next 72 hours will tell us a lot about her journey. Emma's hand found Alex's and gripped it tightly. He squeezed back, silently promising his support. "When can I take them home?" Emma asked. "Julian might be ready in 3 to 4 weeks if his progress continues. Lily will likely need to stay longer, possibly 6 to 8 weeks, depending on her development." Dr. Lakshmi made a note in her chart. "We'll keep you updated daily on their progress." Emma nodded, clearly overwhelmed by the information, but determined to understand everything about her baby's care. After a few more minutes with Lily, the nurse suggested they return to Emma's room, noting her increasing fatigue. "You can visit again this evening," she assured Emma. "Rest is important for your recovery too." Back in her room, Emma's exhaustion was evident. Her face was drawn with pain and emotion as she eased herself from the wheelchair onto the bed with Alex's assistance. "You should sleep," he urged, adjusting her pillows. "I can't," she protested weakly. "There's so much to think about, to plan for." "It can wait a few hours," Alex insisted. "You've just had major surgery and met your babies for the first time. That's enough for one morning." Emma's resistance crumbled as her body's demands overrode her will. "Just a short nap," she conceded, her eyelids already drooping. "I'll be here when you wake up," Alex promised, settling into the now familiar chair beside her bed. "You don't have to stay," she murmured, though her hand sought his even as she spoke. "Meridian must be in chaos without you." "Meridian can manage for a day or two," he replied, surprising himself with how easily the words came. 5 years of putting the company first, of sacrificing everything for its success. Yet here he was, dismissing it as an afterthought. Emma's lips curved in a faint smile as she drifted toward sleep. "The Alex I knew would never say that." "Maybe I'm not that Alex anymore," he said quietly. But she was already asleep, her breathing deep and even. While Emma slept, Alex used the time to make necessary arrangements. He called his assistant to clear his schedule for the remainder of the week, ignoring her thinly veiled shock. He contacted his lawyer about setting up emergency funds for Emma's medical expenses and the twins' care. He researched premature infant care, making notes about specialized equipment and services that might be needed once the babies were discharged. As he worked, a plan began to form in his mind, tentative at first, then growing more defined with each passing hour. Emma needed support, the twins needed stability, and he needed a chance to make amends for walking away 5 years ago, even if that wasn't precisely what had happened. A text message interrupted his planning. It was from Nathan, his COO and closest friend, the only person at Meridian who knew about his history with Emma. "Is everything okay? Sarah said family emergency. Didn't know you had family." Alex hesitated, then replied, "Emma's in hospital. Had twins yesterday. Complications. I'm with her." Nathan's response was immediate. "The Emma? Holy shit. Are you okay? Need anything?" "I'm fine. Handling it. Cover for me with the board?" "Consider it done. But we need to talk about this when you're back." Alex put his phone away, grateful for Nathan's unquestioning support. His gaze returned to Emma, still sleeping peacefully. In repose, her face was softer, the strain of recent months temporarily erased. He found himself memorizing the curve of her cheek, the precise shade of her hair against the white pillowcase, as if storing up images to sustain him once this strange interlude ended. Because it would end. Emma would recover. The twins would grow stronger. And then what? Would she allow him to remain in their lives, or would she once again draw a firm line between her world and his? A soft knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. A middle-aged woman in a hospital social worker's uniform entered quietly. "Mr. Pierce, I'm Diane Gomez from Social Services. Dr. Sharma suggested I speak with you about Ms. Reynolds' situation." Alex rose to greet her, keeping his voice low to avoid waking Emma. "Of course, let's talk in the hallway." Outside Emma's room, Ms. Gomez got straight to the point. Dr. Sharma mentioned that Ms. Reynolds is facing a difficult situation: premature twins, no partner support, and a challenging recovery ahead. "I'd like to discuss available resources with her, but I wanted to clarify your relationship first. Are you family?" "We were together for a year and a half about 5 years ago," Alex explained, feeling strange saying it aloud. "We're friends now. I'm here to help however I can." Ms. Gomez nodded, making a note. "And the baby's father?" "Not in the picture," Alex said tersely, his jaw tightening. "He left when Emma was 6 months pregnant." The social worker's expression remained professional, though a flicker of disapproval crossed her face. "I see. Do you know Ms. Reynolds' current living situation? Employment status? Support system?" Alex realized with a pang how little he knew about Emma's life now. "I'm afraid I don't have those details. We've been out of touch. But I can tell you that financial support won't be an issue. I'll make sure of that." Ms. Gomez studied him thoughtfully. "That's generous, Mr. Pierce. But new mothers, especially those with premature twins, need more than financial assistance. They need practical, hands-on support, help with feedings, medical appointments, household tasks. Does Ms. Reynolds have family nearby who can provide that kind of support?" "Her parents are in Arizona, as far as I know," Alex replied. "But I'm prepared to arrange whatever help she needs: nursing care, housekeeping, childcare assistance." "With all due respect, Mr. Pierce, money can't solve everything," Ms. Gomez said gently. "Premature infants, particularly those who have spent time in the NICU, often have complex needs. Their care can be overwhelming even for two parents, let alone a single mother recovering from a difficult birth." Alex straightened, his CEO persona asserting itself automatically. "I understand the challenges. I'm not suggesting that throwing money at the situation is the answer. I'm saying that I personally will ensure Emma and the twins have everything they need, including my time and presence if she'll accept it." The social worker's expression softened slightly. "That's commendable, but I'd still like to meet with Ms. Reynolds to discuss all her options. Sometimes people are reluctant to ask for help, especially from complicated relationships." "Of course," Alex agreed. "I think she's planning to wake up soon. You could come back in an hour?" "I'll do that. Thank you for your time, Mr. Pierce." Ms. Gomez handed him her card. "Please call if you think of anything else that might help us support Ms. Reynolds and her babies." As the social worker walked away, Alex leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. The conversation had forced him to confront the reality of Emma's situation and his place in it more directly than he'd been ready to do. His initial impulse to swoop in and fix everything with his considerable resources was, he now recognized, simplistic at best, arrogant at worst. Emma hadn't asked for his help beyond his presence during this crisis. She'd built a life without him for 5 years. Who was he to assume she would welcome his intervention now, especially given how they'd parted? He was still deep in thought when he heard Emma call his name. He returned to find her awake, looking more alert than she had since the birth. "Everything okay?" she asked, noting his troubled expression. "Just thinking," he replied, forcing a smile. "How are you feeling?" "Better." She shifted in the bed, wincing slightly. "I'd like to try walking to the bathroom. The nurse said I should start moving around." Alex helped her to her feet, supporting her as she took unsteady steps across the room. The simple act of assisting her, his arm around her waist, her hand gripping his shoulder, created an intimacy that felt both natural and disconcerting. "The social worker was here," he said as he helped her back to bed. "She wants to talk to you about support services when you and the twins go home." Emma's expression closed immediately, a defensive wall sliding into place. "I don't need social services. I've made arrangements." "What kind of arrangements?" Alex asked, keeping his tone carefully neutral. She looked away, fiddling with the edge of her blanket. "I've been saving for months. I have a small 2-bedroom apartment. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, is a retired nurse. She's agreed to help when the babies come home." "Emma." Alex hesitated, searching for words that wouldn't sound condescending. "Premature twins are going to need more than a retired neighbor, no matter how well-intentioned." "You think I don't know that?" Her voice rose slightly. "You think I haven't been lying awake every night for 3 months, wondering how I'm going to manage? Since Richard walked out, I've done nothing but plan and worry and try to figure out how to do this alone." "You don't have to do it alone," he said quietly. Emma laughed, a brittle sound with no humor in it. "Right, because suddenly you're here, riding to the rescue because the hospital happened to call you for blood. Where were you 3 months ago when Richard told me to get rid of them or get out? Where were you 5 years ago when I realized I couldn't compete with Meridian for your attention?" The accusation stung, all the more because it contained a grain of truth. "That's not fair, Emma. You left me, remember? 1 note, no discussion, no chance to fix things." "Fix things?" Her green eyes flashed with sudden anger. "You weren't interested in fixing anything. You were married to that company. I was just convenient. Someone to come home to when you remembered I existed." "That's not true," Alex protested. But even as the words left his mouth, he questioned their validity. Hadn't she tried multiple times to discuss the growing distance between them? Hadn't he brushed off her concerns, always promising to address them later, when the latest crisis at Meridian was resolved? "It doesn't matter now," Emma said, the burst of energy draining away as quickly as it had come. "It's ancient history. We're different people now." "Are we?" he asked softly. "Because it feels like we're having the same argument we had 5 years ago." Emma closed her eyes briefly, a gesture of exhaustion rather than surrender. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have lashed out. You've been incredibly kind, staying with me, checking on the twins. I'm grateful, truly, but I need to figure this out on my own terms." "The social worker will still want to talk to you," Alex reminded her gently. "It's standard procedure for situations like this." "Fine, I'll talk to her." Emma sighed. "But I won't be a charity case, Alex. I've worked too hard for my independence." Before Alex could respond, a nurse entered with medication and another chance for Emma to visit the NICU. The tense conversation was temporarily set aside as Emma eagerly prepared for her second visit with the twins. This time, the wheelchair journey to the NICU felt less surreal, though no less emotional. Emma seemed stronger, more present, asking detailed questions about the twins' care and progress. Alex walked beside her, maintaining a supportive but slightly more distant presence, mindful of the boundaries she had just reasserted. In the NICU, they found Dr. Lakshmi examining Lily, her expression focused as she listened to the tiny girl's chest with a stethoscope. "How is she?" Emma asked anxiously. The doctor straightened, offering a cautious smile. "Actually, she's showing improvement. Her oxygen saturation is better today, and she's requiring less ventilator support." Relief washed over Emma's face. "Can I touch her?" "Yes, and if this improvement continues, you might be able to hold her tomorrow or the next day." Emma reached into the incubator, her fingers gently caressing Lily's tiny hand. "Hear that, little one? You're getting stronger. Keep fighting." Alex stood slightly apart, watching the interaction with a tightness in his throat. Despite the complexity of the situation, despite the unresolved tension between them, He couldn't deny the pull he felt toward Emma and her children. It was as if the blood transfusion had created a connection that went beyond the physical. His life force now flowing through Emma, sustaining her as she sustained these tiny new lives. Julian was awake in his incubator, his dark eyes seeming to focus briefly as Emma leaned over him. "He looks so much better today," she marveled. "His color is good." "He's a champion," the nurse agreed. "Would you like to try feeding him? He's been showing interest in the pacifier, which is a good sign." Emma's face lit up. "Yes, please." As the nurse helped transfer Julian into Emma's arms and showed her how to offer the tiny, premature bottle, Alex found himself moving closer, drawn by the intimate tableau. Emma looked up at him, a different kind of vulnerability in her eyes now. "Would you like to try after me?" she offered, surprising him with the gesture of inclusion. "I'd be honored," he replied, emotion making his voice rougher than usual. When it was his turn, the nurse placed Julian carefully in his arms, showing him how to support the tiny head and position the specialized preemie bottle. The baby was impossibly light, hardly weighing more than a small bag of flour, yet the responsibility felt enormous. Julian's eyes, dark blue like most newborns but with a hint of green at the edges, seemed to study Alex's face with solemn curiosity. "Hello there," Alex whispered, a surge of protectiveness overwhelming him as the baby's tiny hand curled reflexively around his finger. "You've had quite an adventure already, haven't you?" He glanced up to find Emma watching them, an unreadable expression on her face. For a moment, they might have been any new family, mother, father, twins, sharing the wonder of new life. But they weren't a family, and the reality of their complicated situation hovered like an unwelcome shadow over the moment. After the NICU visit, Emma seemed more subdued, lost in thought as they returned to her room. The social worker, Ms. Gomez, was waiting, and Alex excused himself to give them privacy. He used the time to check in with Nathan about Meridian's operations and to call his real estate agent about a property he'd been considering, a spacious apartment in a building with excellent security, not far from Emma's hospital. When he returned an hour later, he found Emma sitting up in bed, a stack of pamphlets and paperwork beside her. "How did it go with the social worker?" he asked, taking his usual seat beside her. Emma shrugged. "Fine. She had some helpful information about support groups and services." She paused, then added reluctantly, "She also strongly suggested I consider moving in with family or having someone stay with me for at least the first few months after the twins come home." "That makes sense," Alex said carefully. "Premature twins are going to require round-the-clock care." "I know." Emma's frustration was evident. "But my parents are in their 70s, and my sister has 3 kids of her own in Chicago. My friends all work full-time. Mrs. Chen can only help a few hours a day." She gestured to the pamphlets. "I'm looking into home health aides, but the cost is—" "Let me help," Alex said simply. Emma shook her head. "I can't accept your money, Alex." "It's not about money," he insisted. "Or rather, it's not just about money. I want to be there for you and the twins." "Why?" The question was direct, her gaze unflinching. It was the question he'd been avoiding since receiving that first call from the hospital. Why had he dropped everything for a woman who had walked away from him 5 years ago? Why did the sight of her children, another man's children, awaken such fierce protectiveness in him? Why couldn't he simply donate blood and return to his ordered, successful life? "Because I never stopped caring about you," he admitted finally. "Because seeing you again, seeing Julian and Lily, it's made me realize how empty my life has been, how meaningless all the success and money are without someone to share it with." Emma's expression softened slightly. "Alex, I'm not asking for anything," he hastened to add. "I'm not expecting us to pick up where we left off or pretending the past 5 years didn't happen. I'm just asking you to let me help, as a friend, if nothing else." She was silent for a long moment, weighing his words. "What exactly are you proposing?" I've found an apartment, 3 bedrooms, secure building, elevator access, close to the best pediatric specialists in the city. It's furnished and available immediately. He held up a hand as she began to protest. Hear me out. You and the twins would have your own space. I would take the 3rd bedroom, or stay elsewhere if you prefer. I could hire a specialized home health nurse, someone with NICU experience. You wouldn't have to worry about costs or logistics. You could focus on recovering and bonding with Julian and Lily. And when the twins are older? When they don't need such intensive care? What then? Emma challenged. That would be entirely up to you, Alex said honestly. If you want me to step back at that point, I will. No strings, no expectations. Emma looked away, blinking rapidly. It's too much, Alex. I can't accept that kind of investment from you. Consider it repayment then, he suggested, for all the times I put Meridian first when we were together, for all the anniversaries and birthdays I missed, for the life we might have had if I'd made different choices. Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. That's not fair, she whispered. You can't use our past to manipulate me now. I'm not trying to manipulate you, Alex said, moving to sit on the edge of her bed, taking her hand in his. I'm trying to make amends, to be the man I should have been 5 years ago, the man who puts people before profit, the man who doesn't let the people he cares about face impossible challenges alone. She didn't pull her hand away, which he took as a positive sign. I need time to think about it, she said finally. This is all happening so fast. Yesterday morning, I was just trying to get through another day of bed rest. Now I'm a mother to premature twins, you're back in my life and you're offering to upend everything again. Take all the time you need, Alex assured her. The apartment isn't going anywhere. Neither am I. Emma nodded, clearly exhausted by the emotional conversation. I should rest before evening rounds, she said, and I want to pump milk for the twins. I'll give you some space, Alex offered, standing. I'll be back in time to accompany you to the evening NICU visit if you'd like. I would, Emma said, and the simple acknowledgement felt like a victory. 3 days passed in a new routine. Mornings spent discussing Emma's recovery with doctors, midday visits to the NICU to check on the twins' progress, afternoons when Alex would step away to handle the most urgent Meridian business while Emma rested, and evenings spent together in the NICU, marveling at each small improvement in Julian and Lily's condition. Julian was thriving, gaining weight steadily and requiring less medical intervention each day. Lily remained more fragile but was making steady progress, her tiny body growing stronger under the watchful care of the NICU staff. On the 3rd day, Emma was finally able to hold her daughter for the first time, an emotional moment that left everyone, including the seasoned NICU nurses, blinking back tears. She's so perfect, Emma whispered, cradling Lily against her chest, careful of the tubes and wires, still monitoring her daughter's vital functions. So incredibly perfect. Alex, who had just finished his own kangaroo care session with Julian, watched them with a lump in his throat. The sight of Emma holding their daughter, no, not their daughter, he corrected himself mentally, was simultaneously beautiful and painful, a glimpse of a life that could have been his if circumstances had been different. That evening, Dr. Sharma informed Emma that she would be discharged the following day, though the twins would remain in the NICU for at least several more weeks. How are your arrangements coming along? The doctor asked. You'll need a comfortable, quiet place to recover while visiting the twins daily. Emma hesitated, glancing at Alex. They hadn't discussed his offer again since that first conversation, though it had hovered unspoken between them. I'm still finalizing those details, she said vaguely. After the doctor left, an awkward silence filled the room. Alex was the first to break it. The apartment is ready whenever you are, he said quietly. No pressure, but the offer stands. Emma sighed, running a hand through her hair. I've been thinking about it constantly. Logically, I know it makes sense. The apartment is close to the hospital. It would provide stability for the twins, and having help during these first critical months would be invaluable. "But," Alex prompted, hearing the hesitation in her voice. "But I'm afraid," she admitted, vulnerability naked in her expression. "Afraid of becoming dependent on you. Afraid of what it might mean for me, for the twins, for us." The last word hung in the air between them, acknowledging the undercurrent that had been building since his arrival at the hospital. Despite the circumstances, despite the years apart, there was still something between them, a connection that had never fully severed. "I understand," Alex said carefully, "and I meant what I said before. No strings, no expectations. If you decide to accept my help, it doesn't obligate you to anything beyond allowing me to support you and the twins during this difficult time." Emma studied him, her green eyes searching his face. "Why are you really doing this, Alex? The complete truth this time." He took a deep breath, knowing he owed her honesty. "When the hospital called, something inside me just shifted. All the priorities I've built my life around for the past 5 years suddenly seemed hollow. Seeing you again, meeting Julian and Lily, it's awakened something I thought I'd buried for good. I don't expect you to feel the same way. I don't expect anything from you. But I need to do this, Emma. I need to be the man I should have been 5 years ago. And if I say no, if I thank you for the blood donation and the hospital visits, but tell you I want to do this on my own, then I'll respect your decision," he said, though the words physically hurt to speak. "I'll walk away, if that's what you truly want." Emma closed her eyes briefly, as if the weight of the decision was physically taxing. "I don't think that is what I want," she said finally, so quietly he almost didn't hear her. Hope surged in his chest. "What do you want, Emma?" "I want what's best for my children," she said firmly. "And right now, that means accepting help where it's offered, even if it complicates things emotionally." She took a deep breath. "So, yes, I'll accept your offer of the apartment and nursing help, at least until the twins are stable and I'm recovered enough to manage on my own." Relief washed over Alex. "Thank you for trusting me," he said simply. "I'm not sure trust is the right word," Emma replied with a hint of her old dry humor. "Let's call it a pragmatic decision based on the limited options available to a single mother of premature twins." Alex smiled, recognizing the defense mechanism for what it was. "Fair enough. I'll make the arrangements for tomorrow's discharge." The next morning brought a flurry of activity: final examinations, discharge paperwork, prescriptions, and detailed instructions for Emma's continued recovery at home. Alex had arranged for a private nurse to accompany them from the hospital to the apartment, along with a specialized service to deliver and set up any additional medical equipment Emma might need during her recovery. As Emma was wheeled down to the hospital entrance, she insisted on stopping at the NICU for one more visit with the twins before leaving. "I'll be back in a few hours," she promised Julian and Lily, touching each of them gently through the incubator portholes. "Mommy just needs to get settled, and then I'll be here every day, watching you grow stronger." The twins seemed to respond to her voice, Julian squirming slightly while Lily's tiny fingers flexed. The NICU nurses assured Emma that they would call immediately if there was any change in the baby's condition, and that she could call the direct line anytime, day or night, for updates. The journey from the hospital to the apartment was mercifully short. Emma remained silent throughout, her face pale with pain and emotion. The separation from her newborns, even temporarily, was clearly taking a toll. When they arrived at the building, a sleek, modern high-rise in one of the city's most exclusive neighborhoods, Emma's eyes widened slightly, but she made no comment. Alex had deliberately chosen a property that was luxurious without being ostentatious, prioritizing comfort, security, and proximity to the hospital over extravagance. "Here we are," he said as the elevator opened directly into the apartment foyer. "Let me show you around, or would you prefer to rest first?" "Show me," Emma said, stepping carefully from the wheelchair the nurse had insisted on using. "I need to know where everything is." The apartment was spacious and bathed in natural light, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic city views. The open-concept living area flowed into a gourmet kitchen, while a hallway led to 3 bedroom suites, each with its own bathroom. "This would be your room," Alex said, opening the door to the master suite. "I've had it prepared with everything the hospital recommended for your recovery." Emma stepped inside, taking in the king-sized bed with its mountain of pillows, the comfortable seating area by the window, the ensuite bathroom equipped with safety rails and a shower chair. Fresh flowers adorned the bedside table, and a stack of books, all titles she'd once mentioned enjoying, sat within easy reach. "And the twins' room is here," Alex continued, moving to the adjacent door. "I wasn't sure about your preferences for decor, so I kept it simple for now." The nursery was painted a soft, neutral beige with gentle touches of yellow and green. 2 identical cribs stood ready, along with a changing table, a glider rocker, and a small sofa that converted to a bed. A state-of-the-art baby monitor system was installed, along with a hospital-grade breast pump station. "There's a 3rd bedroom at the end of the hall," Alex explained. "That's where I'll stay if you're comfortable with that arrangement. If not, I can find somewhere else nearby." Emma turned to him, clearly overwhelmed. It's too much, Alex. I can't possibly accept." "You can," he interrupted gently. "You are. For Julian and Lily." She nodded, blinking back tears. "For Julian and Lily," she agreed. "But we'll need to establish some ground rules." "Of course," Alex said immediately. "Whatever you need." We're not. She struggled to articulate the boundaries she needed. "This arrangement is temporary. I'm grateful for your help, but I don't want the twins to become attached to a presence that won't be permanent in their lives." The implications stung, but Alex nodded his understanding. "I'll follow your lead on interaction with the twins, and I'll respect whatever boundaries you set for our friendship." Emma seemed satisfied with this response. "And I'll need to contribute somehow. I can't pay for all this, obviously, but perhaps I could handle the cooking or—" "Emma," Alex interrupted firmly, "you've just had major surgery and delivered premature twins. Your job right now is to recover and be there for Julian and Lily. That's contribution enough." She looked as if she wanted to argue but was too exhausted to formulate a response. "I need to lie down," she admitted finally. The private nurse, who had been discreetly organizing medical supplies in the kitchen, stepped forward. "Let me help you get settled, Ms. Reynolds. I'll need to check your incision and administer your medication." Alex retreated to give them privacy, using the time to arrange for dinner delivery and to update Nathan on his extended absence from Meridian. When he returned to the living area an hour later, he found Emma resting on the couch, looking marginally more comfortable in loose pajamas, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. "The nurse left?" he asked, setting down the grocery bags he'd arranged to be delivered. Emma nodded. "She'll be back tomorrow morning. She showed me how to care for my incision and left detailed instructions for my medication schedule." She hesitated, then added, "Thank you for arranging all of this. I know I've been less than gracious about accepting your help." "You've been through a traumatic experience," Alex said, unpacking fresh fruit and prepared meals into the refrigerator. "I don't expect gratitude. I just want to help." A companionable silence fell between them as Alex continued organizing the kitchen and Emma flipped through one of the books he'd provided. It felt strange yet familiar, this domestic scene that echoed their life together years ago. "I called the NICU while you were out," Emma said eventually. "The nurses said the twins had a good afternoon. Julian might be ready for a special preemie car seat test in a week or so if he continues gaining weight." "That's wonderful news," Alex said, genuinely pleased. "And Lily?" "Still needing more support, but her oxygen levels are improving." Emma's voice softened when she spoke of her daughter. "The nurse said she becomes more alert when they play the recording of my voice." "She knows her mother," Alex said, coming to sit in the armchair adjacent to Emma's couch. "Both of them do." Emma's expression grew thoughtful. It's strange. I knew I would love them, of course, but I wasn't prepared for how overwhelming it would be. From the moment I saw them, it was as if my heart existed outside my body, divided into these two tiny, fragile pieces. "They're lucky to have you," Alex said softly. "You're already an amazing mother." Emma looked away, but not before he caught the sheen of tears in her eyes. "I'm terrified I won't be enough for them," she confessed, "that I'll fail them somehow." "You won't," Alex assured her. "And you're not alone in this, Emma. Not anymore." She met his gaze then, vulnerability and uncertainty clear in her expression. "I never expected this, you know. When they called you for blood, when you showed up at the hospital, it was the last thing I ever imagined happening." "Life has a way of surprising us," Alex said. "Sometimes painfully, sometimes wonderfully. Sometimes both at once." The next 2 weeks established a new rhythm to their lives. Each morning, Alex would drive Emma to the hospital, where she would spend hours in the NICU with Julian and Lily. He would join her when invited, sometimes holding Julian while Emma held Lily, other times stepping back to give her privacy with her children. In the afternoons, Emma would return to the apartment to rest while Alex handled Meridian business remotely. Evenings found them sharing quiet dinners, discussing the twins' progress, and gradually, hesitantly, rebuilding a fragile friendship. Julian continued to thrive, gaining weight steadily and requiring less medical intervention each day. By the end of the second week, he had passed his car seat test and was deemed strong enough to be discharged, though Lily would need to remain in the NICU for at least another 2 weeks. "You're going home tomorrow, little man," Emma whispered to Julian as she held him during their evening NICU visit. The joy on her face was tempered with worry about leaving Lily behind. "Your sister will join us soon, I promise." Alex, who had been speaking with Dr. Lakshmi about Lily's progress, approached with cautious optimism. "The doctor says Lily's lung function has improved significantly. If she continues at this rate, she might be ready for discharge in 10 days instead of 2 weeks. Emma's eyes lit up. "Really? That's wonderful news." The NICU nurse helping with Julian smiled. "They're both fighters. Now, shall we go over the discharge instructions for Julian one more time?" For the next hour, Emma and Alex listened attentively as the nurse explained the specialized care Julian would need at home. Feeding schedules, temperature monitoring, signs of distress to watch for, follow-up appointments to schedule. Alex took detailed notes, determined not to miss any crucial information. "It's a lot to remember," the nurse acknowledged, seeing Emma's overwhelmed expression. "But you won't be doing this alone." She glanced at Alex with approval. "Having a supportive partner makes all the difference with preemies." Neither Emma nor Alex corrected her assumption, though an awkward glance passed between them. Their arrangement was temporary, their relationship undefined. Yet to outside observers, they increasingly resembled a family unit, parents united in their concern for vulnerable infants. The next morning, Emma could barely contain her nervous excitement as they prepared to bring Julian home. Alex had ensured everything was ready, the nursery equipped with a hospital-grade monitor, a pediatrician scheduled for a home visit the following day, and the specialized formula Julian required stocked in the kitchen. "Are you ready for this?" Alex asked as he drove them to the hospital for the final discharge paperwork. Emma nodded, though her hands twisted anxiously in her lap. "Yes. No. I don't know. What if something happens and we're not there? What if he stops breathing? What if—" "We have all the monitoring equipment," Alex assured her. "We've been trained on infant CPR. We have the direct line to the NICU and the pediatrician's personal cell number. Julian is ready for this step, and so are you." Emma smiled faintly at his use of "we," but didn't comment on it. The shared responsibility had evolved naturally over the past 2 weeks, with Alex gradually taking on more than just a supportive role in the twins' care. At the hospital, the discharge process took longer than expected. Last-minute checks, final instructions, paperwork to sign, and prescriptions to fill. Finally, Julian was carefully secured in his specialized car seat, looking impossibly tiny but alert, his dark blue eyes taking in the new surroundings with what appeared to be curiosity. "We'll bring him to visit Lily tomorrow," the NICU nurse assured Emma, who was tearfully saying goodbye to her daughter. They need to maintain their twin bond, even during this separation. The drive home was tense, Alex navigating with exaggerated care while Emma sat in the back beside Julian's car seat, constantly checking that he was breathing. The baby, for his part, slept peacefully, undisturbed by his mother's vigilance. Arriving at the apartment felt like crossing an invisible threshold. As Alex carried the car seat inside, with Emma hovering anxiously beside him, there was a sense of momentousness to the occasion, their first real test as Julian's caregivers, without the safety net of hospital staff just a call button away. "Welcome home, Julian," Emma whispered as she gently lifted him from the car seat and cradled him against her chest. The baby blinked sleepily, his tiny hand curling reflexively around her finger. Alex watched them, a complicated emotion tightening his chest. Over the past 2 weeks, he had grown increasingly attached to both twins, but especially to Julian, whose subtle personality was beginning to emerge. His alertness during feedings, the way he seemed to listen when spoken to, his strong grasp when offered a finger to hold. "Should I put the kettle on?" he offered, needing to do something practical. "You must be exhausted." Emma nodded gratefully. "That would be nice. I think I'll take him to the nursery, try to get him settled." Alex busied himself in the kitchen, giving her space while remaining within earshot. Their carefully choreographed dance of closeness and distance had become almost second nature, though the boundaries continued to shift subtly each day. That evening established a new pattern, the three of them in the apartment, Julian's needs dictating the rhythm of their hours. The midnight feeding fell to Alex, who insisted Emma needed uninterrupted rest to continue her own recovery. He sat in the nursery's glider chair, cradling Julian against his chest, marveling at the perfect tiny fingernails, the delicate eyelashes, the soft puffs of breath against his neck. "You're something else, little man," he whispered to the sleeping infant. "You've turned everything upside down, you know that? In the best possible way." From the doorway came a soft sound. Alex looked up to find Emma watching them, wrapped in her robe, her expression unreadable in the dim nursery light. "Sorry," she said quietly. "I woke up and heard voices." "Just having a man-to-man chat," Alex replied, keeping his voice low. "He's a good listener." Emma came further into the room, perching on the edge of the small sofa. "What were you telling him?" Alex hesitated. "Just how remarkable he is, how much he's changed things." "He has, hasn't he?" Emma's gaze was soft as she looked at her son. "2 weeks ago, I was terrified I might lose them both. Now look at him, home, thriving." Her voice caught. "I just wish Lily could be here too." "She will be soon," Alex assured her. "Every day she gets stronger." Emma nodded, drawing her robe tighter around herself. "I should try to sleep while he's settled. The nurse said to rest whenever he does." "Good advice," Alex agreed. "Go back to bed. I've got this." She hesitated, then leaned forward to press a gentle kiss to Julian's head. As she straightened, her eyes met Alex's, and for a moment, something electric passed between them, a recognition of the strange, beautiful intimacy they were sharing despite all the complications of their past. "Thank you," she said simply, and he knew she meant for more than just the midnight feeding. "Always," he replied, the word a promise that encompassed far more than he could articulate. The next morning brought Julian's first pediatrician visit, a milestone that filled Emma with fresh anxiety. Dr. Patel, a specialist in premature infant care, arrived promptly at 9, her warm manner immediately putting Emma at ease. "Let's see how our little warrior is doing today," she said, gently examining Julian on the changing table. She checked his weight, his reflexes, his breathing, and various other measurements, making notes on her tablet as she worked. "He's doing remarkably well," she announced finally. "His weight gain is on track, his color is excellent, and his muscle tone is developing nicely." Emma sagged with relief. "Really? You're sure?" "Absolutely," Dr. Patel confirmed. "You're doing an excellent job with his care." She glanced between Emma and Alex. "Both of you. Preemie parents often struggle with the transition home, but you two seem to have developed a good system." Again, neither corrected the assumption that they were a couple. It was simpler somehow to let people believe what they wanted, especially when the truth was so complicated even they couldn't define it precisely. After the doctor left, Emma insisted on visiting Lily, unwilling to go more than a day without seeing her daughter. The logistics were complex. Julian couldn't be left with just anyone given his special needs, and Emma was reluctant to impose further on Alex. "I'll come with you," he said, solving the dilemma. "We'll all go. The nurse said it's important for Julian to visit Lily anyway." At the NICU, they were greeted with encouraging news. Lily had gained weight overnight and was showing improved respiratory function. She was more alert during her care sessions, and the nurses reported she became especially active when they played recordings of Emma's voice. "She knows her mama," one nurse said approvingly, "and look how she responds to her brother being here." It was true. Lily seemed more animated with Julian nearby, though they couldn't yet have direct contact. The staff arranged the siblings' care schedules to coincide, creating what they called twin time, despite the separate incubators. "Research shows that twins who are kept together do better," Dr. Lakshmi explained during her rounds. "They're used to sharing space, to feeling each other's presence. We try to maintain that connection even when one is ready for discharge before the other." As they watched the twins during this coordinated care time, Emma leaned slightly against Alex's shoulder, a gesture of shared fatigue and emotion. He responded instinctively, his arm coming around her waist to support her. "They'll be together soon," he murmured. "I know," she replied, not moving away from his touch. "I just hate leaving her here each day." 8 more days, he reminded her, though they both knew that estimate could change based on Lily's progress. One day at a time. The drive home was quiet, Julian sleeping soundly in his car seat while Emma gazed out the window, lost in thought. Alex respected her silence, understanding the emotional toll of these daily separations from Lily. As he parked in the building's garage, Emma finally spoke. "This isn't what I planned, you know." "What do you mean?" he asked, turning off the engine but making no move to exit the car. "Any of it. The pregnancy, the complicated birth, you, back in my life." She shook her head slightly. "When Richard left, I thought I'd hit rock bottom. I was 6 months pregnant with twins, abandoned by their father, facing the prospect of raising them entirely alone." She laughed softly, though there was no humor in it. "I had it all mapped out, a strict budget, childcare arrangements with Mrs. Chen, a leave of absence from work that would stretch just far enough if I was careful with my savings." Alex listened, sensing she needed to vocalize these thoughts that had been building. "Then the preeclampsia hit, and everything spiraled out of control," she continued. "The emergency C-section, the twins in the NICU, the blood transfusion." She turned to look at him directly. "And suddenly you were there, stepping into the void Richard left, offering solutions to problems I couldn't solve on my own." "Emma," she held up a hand. "Let me finish. I've been thinking about this constantly. At first I was afraid that accepting your help meant losing my independence, my agency, that I'd be trading one dependency for another." She took a deep breath. "But these past 2 weeks have shown me something different. You haven't tried to take control or make decisions for me. You've just been there, steadfast, supportive. And I'm beginning to think that maybe independence isn't about doing everything alone. Maybe it's about having the wisdom to accept help when it's offered without strings." Alex felt something tight in his chest begin to loosen. "That's all I want to be, Emma. Whatever you and the twins need." She nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I know, and I'm grateful. more than I can express." She glanced back at Julian, still sleeping peacefully. "We should get him inside." The moment had passed, but something had shifted between them. A step toward trust, toward whatever new relationship was slowly forming from the ashes of their past. The following week settled into a rhythm punctuated by daily visits to Lily in the NICU. Each day brought subtle improvements in her condition: stronger breathing, more consistent weight gain, increased alertness during her wakeful periods. Julian thrived at home, his tiny features becoming more defined as the initial newborn puffiness receded. He was beginning to show distinct preferences. He quieted immediately when Emma sang to him, but he seemed most content during his evening feeding with Alex, often falling into his deepest sleep afterward. One evening, as Alex gently rocked Julian after his bottle, Emma sat cross-legged on the nursery sofa, reviewing Lily's latest progress report from the NICU. "Dr. Lakshmi thinks she might be ready to come home in 4 days instead of 6, she announced, looking up with barely contained excitement. "Her oxygen levels have stabilized, and she's taking her feeds consistently now." "That's wonderful news," Alex said, his voice soft to avoid disturbing the drowsing infant in his arms. "The family will be complete." The word family hung in the air between them, neither acknowledging the implications but both aware of its significance. Over the past 3 weeks, they had developed a domestic partnership of sorts, sharing responsibility for Julian's care, dividing household tasks, finding a comfortable coexistence despite the complicated history between them. "I've been thinking," Emma said, setting aside the medical report, "about what happens after Lily comes home. About arrangements." Alex felt a flicker of apprehension. Was this the moment she would thank him for his help and suggest he return to his own life? He had known from the beginning that their arrangement was temporary, but the prospect of stepping away from Emma and the twins now seemed impossible to contemplate. "What kind of arrangements?" he asked carefully, continuing the gentle rocking motion that kept Julian peaceful. Emma tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous gesture he remembered from years ago. "My maternity leave ends in 8 weeks. I'll need to make decisions about childcare, about where we'll live long-term." "I thought you might stay here," Alex said, trying to keep his tone neutral. "The apartment is ideal for the twins with plenty of space as they grow." "It's your apartment, Alex," Emma reminded him gently. "We can't impose indefinitely." "It's not an imposition," he insisted. "I bought it for you and the twins." Emma's eyes widened. "You what?" Alex winced, realizing he'd revealed more than he'd intended. "I didn't rent it. I bought it outright, with you and the twins in mind. The location, the security, the accessibility, it's all designed to make your lives easier." "Alex, that's..." She shook her head, seemingly at a loss for words. "That's too much. It's an enormous financial commitment." "It's an investment," he countered. "In their future. In yours." "And what about your future?" Emma asked quietly. "You can't put your life on hold indefinitely to play stand-in father to someone else's children." The words stung, though he knew she hadn't meant them cruelly. "Is that what you think I'm doing? Playing a role until something better comes along?" "I don't know what you're doing," Emma admitted. "I don't know what I'm doing either. We haven't exactly discussed the long-term implications of this." She gestured vaguely between them. "Whatever this is." Alex considered his next words carefully, aware that they were approaching a turning point. Julian had fallen fully asleep in his arms, his tiny chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Gently, Alex rose and placed the baby in his crib, adjusting the monitoring sensors with practiced ease. Only when he was certain Julian was settled did he turn back to Emma. "Would you like some tea?" he asked. "This feels like a conversation we should have without worrying about waking him." Emma nodded, following him to the kitchen where they moved in comfortable synchrony, Alex filling the kettle while Emma retrieved mugs and tea bags, a domestic dance they had perfected over the past weeks. When they were seated at the kitchen island, steaming mugs before them, Alex finally addressed the question that had been building between them. "I don't see myself as a stand-in for anyone," he said quietly. "Not for Richard, not for some hypothetical future partner you might meet. What I feel for Julian and for Lily, even though she's not home yet, isn't temporary or conditional." Emma's hands tightened around her mug. "They're not your children, Alex." "Biologically, no," he agreed. "But in every way that matters to me, they've become mine too. I was there when they fought their way into this world. My blood flows in their veins, literally. I've held Julian through midnight feedings and doctor's appointments and first baths. I've watched Lily grow stronger every day, counting her tiny fingers and toes through the incubator wall." His voice grew rough with emotion. "I love them, Emma. I didn't expect to, didn't plan to, but I do." Tears filled Emma's eyes, but she didn't look away. "And me? Where do I fit in this scenario you're building?" The question demanded complete honesty. "I never stopped loving you," he said simply. "Even after you left, even during those 5 years when I threw myself into work and pretended I was fulfilled by corporate success. When I saw you in that hospital bed, it was like the world suddenly came back into focus after years of blurred edges." "Alex," her voice broke on his name. "I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give," he hastened to add. "I'm not trying to pressure you or rush you. If friendship is all you can offer right now, I'll accept that gratefully. If you need space once Lily comes home, I'll find somewhere else to live while remaining as involved with the twins as you'll allow." Emma was silent for a long moment, tears tracking silently down her cheeks. "It's not that simple," she said finally. "We hurt each other before. Badly. What's to stop that from happening again? We're different people now," Alex pointed out. "I'm not the same workaholic who put Meridian before everything else. You're not the same woman who walked away rather than fight for what she wanted." "Aren't we, though?" Emma challenged. "You've been working remotely, but Meridian still owns a piece of you. I can see it in your eyes when you take those conference calls, when you review those reports. And I'm still afraid. Of being hurt, of being abandoned, of not being enough." "You're right," Alex acknowledged. "Those parts of us still exist, but now we're aware of them. Now we can make different choices, set different boundaries." He reached across the island to take her hand. "I don't want to repeat the past, Emma. I want to build something new, something better." She didn't pull her hand away, but her expression remained troubled. "The twins complicate everything. If it were just us, we could take things slowly, see where this leads. But Julian and Lily need stability, consistency. They're already forming attachments to you. If we try this and it fails—" "It won't," Alex said with a certainty that surprised even him. "You can't promise that." "No, I can't," he admitted. "But I can promise to try harder than I've ever tried at anything in my life. I can promise to put you and the twins first, always. I can promise that whatever happens between us, my commitment to Julian and Lily won't waver." Emma sighed, rubbing her temples. "I need time to think about all this. Lily will be home soon, and that's going to be another huge adjustment." "Of course," Alex agreed immediately. "Take all the time you need. No pressure, no expectations." She offered a small, tired smile. "You keep saying that, but your presence here, your involvement with the twins, it creates its own kind of pressure, even if that's not your intention." "Would it be better if I moved out?" he asked, the words painful but necessary. "I could find a place nearby, still help with the twins, but give you more space to think." Emma considered the offer, then slowly shook her head. "No. The truth is, I've come to rely on you, to need you here. Not just for help with Julian, but—" She hesitated, vulnerability naked in her expression. "I sleep better knowing you're down the hall. I laugh more when you're around. I feel safer, more grounded, less afraid of all the challenges ahead." Hope bloomed in Alex's chest. "That sounds like a starting point." "Maybe it is," she agreed cautiously. "But Alex, I need you to understand something. The twins will always come first for me now. Every decision I make has to be filtered through what's best for them." "As it should be," he assured her. "I wouldn't expect anything else." She nodded, seeming to come to a decision. "Then let's take this one day at a time. No grand declarations, no definitive plans beyond getting Lily home and settled. We'll see where we are then." "One day at a time," Alex agreed, relief washing through him. It wasn't everything he wanted, but it was a chance to prove himself, to build something meaningful with Emma and the twins. Their conversation was interrupted by the soft wail of the baby monitor. Julian was awake and hungry again. Emma smiled ruefully, sliding off her stool. "Duty calls." "I'll warm a bottle," Alex offered, already moving toward the refrigerator where Emma's pumped milk was stored. They moved in tandem once more, the domestic rhythm they'd established over these weeks together carrying them forward. As Emma settled in the living room glider with Julian, Alex handed her the prepared bottle, their fingers brushing in a moment of casual intimacy. "Thank you," she said, and he knew she meant for more than just the bottle. "Always," he replied, the word encompassing everything he couldn't yet say. The following days passed in a blur of activity as they prepared for Lily's homecoming. Alex had the nursery reconfigured to accommodate both twins, with the monitor systems upgraded to track 2 infants simultaneously. Emma prepared frozen meals and organized the apartment to maximize efficiency once both babies were home. Together, they attended a specialized training session at the NICU, learning the particular care routines Lily would need given her more fragile condition. The night before Lily's scheduled discharge, they visited her together for a final NICU checkup. Dr. Lakshmi reviewed her latest tests, nodding with satisfaction. "She's ready," the doctor confirmed. "Her weight gain is steady, her oxygen levels are stable, and she's demonstrated consistent feeding patterns. She'll still need more frequent monitoring than Julian, but she can continue her recovery at home now." Emma couldn't contain her tears of joy as she held her daughter, marveling at how much stronger Lily felt in her arms compared to their first tentative embrace weeks earlier. The tiny girl, still smaller than her brother but growing steadily, gazed up at her mother with eyes that were beginning to show hints of green. Emma's eyes. "Tomorrow, you'll come home," Emma whispered. "Julian is waiting for you. We all are." Alex stood nearby, his heart full as he watched mother and daughter together. Whatever happened between him and Emma, whatever path their relationship took, he would forever be grateful for these moments, for the privilege of witnessing this family coming together against all odds. As they prepared to leave, Dr. Lakshmi pulled him aside briefly. "You've been a tremendous support," she said quietly. "Ms. Reynolds is fortunate to have you in her life, and so are those babies." "I'm the fortunate one," Alex replied honestly. The doctor smiled knowingly. "Families come together in many different ways, Mr. Pierce. Sometimes the most beautiful ones are those formed by choice rather than biology." He carried those words with him as they drove home, Emma unusually quiet beside him, lost in anticipation of tomorrow's homecoming. When they arrived at the apartment, they found that Julian's night nurse had already put him down for his evening sleep. "One last night of relative quiet," Emma said with a nervous laugh as they stood in the doorway of the nursery, watching Julian's peaceful slumber. "Tomorrow, everything changes again." "For the better," Alex assured her, tentatively placing an arm around her shoulders. To his surprise and pleasure, she leaned into him, her head resting against his chest. "Yes," she agreed softly, "for the better." The morning of Lily's homecoming dawned bright and clear, a perfect early spring day that seemed to mirror their collective optimism. Emma was up early, moving through the apartment with nervous energy, checking and rechecking that everything was prepared for Lily's arrival. Alex found her in the nursery, rearranging already perfectly organized supplies. "Everything is ready," he assured her, gently taking a stack of preemie diapers from her hands and returning them to their designated shelf. Lily has everything she needs here. Emma nodded, taking a deep breath to steady herself. I know. I just want everything to be perfect. It will be, Alex promised. Not because the supplies are in the right places, but because she'll finally be home with her family. Family. The word no longer seemed presumptuous or out of place. Whatever the legal or biological realities, the four of them had become a unit bound by something deeper than convention or DNA. Julian, as if sensing the significance of the day, was unusually cooperative that morning, taking his bottle efficiently and drifting back to sleep afterward. The night nurse, who had become an essential part of their support system, offered to stay with him while they went to collect Lily. "You two go bring that little princess home," she insisted. "Julian and I will hold down the fort." The drive to the hospital was filled with anticipation, Emma alternating between excited chatter about finally having both twins home and nervous questions about whether they'd prepared adequately for Lily's more complex needs. "We've got this," Alex reassured her, reaching across to squeeze her hand. "Between the two of us, the night nurse, and the home health visits, Lily will have all the support she needs." Emma squeezed back, a simple gesture that nonetheless sent warmth spreading through him. These small moments of connection had been increasing gradually over the past weeks. A touch here, a shared smile there, the occasional lingering glance that suggested her feelings might be evolving beyond gratitude and friendship. At the NICU, they found Lily already dressed in the going-home outfit Emma had selected weeks ago, a soft pink sleeper that matched the blue one Julian had worn for his hospital departure. Dr. Lakshmi was there for a final examination, her smile confirming what they already knew. "She's ready," the doctor declared. "Her weight is still below where we'd like it to be, but she's gaining consistently. Her breathing is stable, though you'll need to monitor it closely at home with the equipment we've provided." She handed Emma a thick folder. All her follow-up appointments are scheduled, and these are her care instructions. As the discharge process was completed, the NICU staff gathered to say goodbye to the tiny patient who had captured their hearts over the past 5 weeks. Many of the nurses had tears in their eyes as they took turns holding Lily one last time. "We'll miss you, little fighter," one nurse said, carefully transferring Lily to Emma's waiting arms. "But we're so happy you're going home where you belong." The moment felt ceremonial, a rite of passage marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. As Alex secured the specialized car seat and Emma gently placed Lily inside, there was a collective sense of achievement, a battle fought and won against the odds. The drive home was even more careful than it had been with Julian, Alex hyper-aware of the precious cargo they carried. Emma sat in the back beside Lily's car seat, just as she had with Julian, maintaining a constant vigil over her daughter's breathing and comfort. "Almost there, sweet girl," she murmured. "Your brother is waiting to meet you properly." When they arrived at the apartment, the night nurse met them at the door, Julian awake and alert in her arms. "Look who's excited to see his sister," she said, bringing the baby closer as Emma carefully lifted Lily from her car seat. For a moment, they stood in the foyer, Emma holding Lily, the nurse holding Julian, and Alex watching as the twins seemed to recognize each other outside the confines of the NICU. Julian's eyes widened, his tiny hands reaching toward his sister in what appeared to be recognition. "They remember each other," Emma whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face. "They know they belong together." The moment was perfect, suspended in time, a family reunited after weeks of separation and uncertainty. Alex swallowed against the emotion threatening to overwhelm him, committing every detail to memory. The rest of the day passed in a blur of activity as they established new routines to accommodate both twins. Lily required more frequent monitoring, her breathing and heart rate checked regularly with the specialized equipment provided by the hospital. Julian, as if sensing his sister needed more attention, remained unusually calm and content, watching the proceedings with solemn interest from his bouncer seat. By evening, a semblance of order had been established. The night nurse would stay for the first week, helping them adjust to caring for two preemies simultaneously. The home health nurse would visit daily to check Lily's progress, and Emma and Alex would share responsibility for the twins' care, just as they had been doing with Julian. As darkness fell, they sat together in the nursery, each holding a sleeping baby, Emma with Lily, Alex with Julian. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the monitoring equipment and the gentle sounds of infant breathing. "We did it," Emma said softly, her gaze moving from Lily's peaceful face to Alex's. "A month ago, I wasn't sure we'd ever reach this moment." "They're fighters," Alex replied, "like their mother." Emma smiled, the expression transforming her tired face. "Thank you, not just for saying that, but for everything. I couldn't have done this without you." "You could have?" he countered gently. "You're the strongest person I know, but I'm glad you didn't have to." A comfortable silence fell between them, the kind that comes from shared experience and deep understanding. It was Emma who broke it, her voice tentative but determined. "I've been thinking about what you said the other night, about us, about the future." Alex's heart quickened, but he kept his expression neutral. And I think you were right. We are different people now than we were 5 years ago." She looked down at Lily, sleeping peacefully in her arms. "These past weeks have shown me a side of you I never knew existed. Your gentleness with the twins, your patience during the long hospital days, your willingness to step back when I needed space and step forward when I needed support. Fatherhood suits me," Alex said simply, the word no longer feeling presumptuous. Emma nodded, her eyes meeting his again. "It does. Better than I ever could have imagined." She took a deep breath. "I'm still scared, Alex. Scared of trusting again, scared of building something that could fall apart. But I'm more scared of not trying, of denying the twins the family they could have, of denying myself the chance to love you again." The words hung in the air between them, precious and fragile. Alex had to resist the urge to stand and go to her, mindful of the sleeping infant in his arms. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm saying I want to try," Emma replied, equally soft. "Not rushing, not making grand pronouncements, but building something real together, day by day. I'm saying that somewhere between that first hospital visit and today, I realized I never really stopped loving you either." Joy surged through Alex, so intense it was almost painful. "Emma." "I have conditions," she added quickly. "The twins come first, always. We go as slowly as we need to. And if Meridian starts taking over your life again, we address it immediately, not after months of growing distance." "Agreed, on all counts," Alex said without hesitation. "In fact, I've been meaning to talk to you about Meridian. I've been discussing changes with the board, restructuring my role to allow for more family time, delegating responsibilities I've been hoarding, creating a more sustainable leadership model." Emma looked surprised. "You do that? Step back from the company you've built?" "I already have," Alex replied simply. "The paperwork was finalized yesterday. Nathan will take over as CEO. I'll remain as chairman of the board, with strategic input but far fewer day-to-day responsibilities." "Alex, that's a massive change. Are you sure?" "I've never been more certain of anything," he assured her. "These past weeks have shown me what really matters. Success means nothing if you don't have someone to share it with. The twins and you are my priority now." Emma's eyes filled with tears again, but her smile was radiant. "I think I fell in love with you all over again watching you with Julian and Lily," she confessed. "Seeing the man you've become, the father you are to them even though you have no obligation to be." "Biology doesn't make a father," Alex said, looking down at Julian sleeping trustingly in his arms. "Love does." As if on cue, Lily stirred in Emma's arms, making the small mewling sound that signaled hunger. Julian, seemingly attuned to his sister's needs even in sleep, began to wake as well. Feeding time, Emma said with a soft laugh. The romance of new parenthood. I wouldn't trade it for anything, Alex replied honestly, rising carefully with Julian. Shall I warm their bottles? Please, Emma said, adjusting Lily in her arms. And Alex? When you come back, I'd like it if you kissed me. It's been 5 years too long. The simple request, offered with shy directness, made his heart soar. I think that can be arranged, he promised, his voice rough with emotion. 20 minutes later, with both babies fed and settled back to sleep in their cribs, Alex took Emma's hand and led her to the living room sofa. They sat facing each other, 5 years of separation and a month of renewed connection culminating in this moment. Are you sure? He asked, giving her one last chance to reconsider. Emma's answer was to lean forward, closing the distance between them. The kiss was gentle at first, a reintroduction after years apart, then deepened into something more profound, acknowledgement of all they had lost and found again, promise of all that lay ahead. When they finally separated, Emma rested her forehead against his, her eyes closed, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Definitely worth the wait, she murmured. Alex chuckled, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear in a gesture that felt both new and familiar. That's just the beginning, he promised. The baby monitor lit up with movement from the nursery, Lily shifting in her sleep, her tiny arm reaching out toward Julian's crib. They watched the screen together, marveling at the bond between the twins, even in sleep. We should try to rest while they're quiet, Emma suggested, though she made no move to leave the comfort of Alex's embrace. In a minute, he replied, pulling her closer against his side. I want to enjoy this moment a little longer. Outside, the city continued its relentless pace, but within the apartment, time seemed suspended in perfect balance. Emma's head rested against Alex's shoulder, her breathing gradually slowing as exhaustion claimed her. He remained awake, holding her, watching over her just as they together watched over Julian and Lily. 5 weeks ago, he had rushed to the hospital expecting nothing more than to donate blood to a woman from his past. Instead, he had found his future. A family formed not through conventional means, but through crisis, compassion, and ultimately, choice. The baby monitor showed both twins sleeping peacefully, their tiny chests rising and falling in synchronized rhythm. In his arms, Emma slept just as soundly, trust and vulnerability evident in the way she had surrendered to rest against him. My family, Alex whispered to the quiet apartment, the word no longer tentative but a declaration of absolute truth. Whatever challenges lay ahead, and there would be many with 2 premature infants and a relationship still finding its footing, they would face them together, one day at a time. Blood had brought him back into Emma's life, his rare type providing what she and the twins needed in their moment of crisis. But it was love that would keep him there, love that had transformed a corporate titan into a devoted father, love that had given a fractured past the chance to become a healed future. As if sensing his thoughts, Emma stirred slightly in his arms, murmuring his name before settling back into sleep. Alex pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, then closed his eyes, allowing himself to rest at last. In the nursery, Julian and Lily slept on, unaware of the journey that had brought them all to this moment, unaware of the odds they had defied simply by breathing, by growing stronger each day, unaware that the man who had rushed to the hospital with his heart in his throat at the news of their impending birth was not bound to them by DNA, but by something far more powerful, a choice made freely, a love given without reservation, a commitment that would shape all their lives in ways yet to unfold. 1 month ago, a desperate call for rare blood had reunited 2 people who thought they had lost each other forever. Tonight, that same blood flowed through the veins of a newly formed family, binding them together in the most fundamental way possible, not through obligation or expectation, but through the miraculous alchemy of crisis transformed into blessing. Emma had once accused Alex of putting Meridian before everything else, of missing what truly mattered while chasing corporate success. Looking at her now, peaceful in sleep, he knew with absolute certainty that he would never make that mistake again. The lessons of the past month had been hard-won but invaluable. Some emergencies, it turned out, were actually beginnings in disguise. Some hearts that stopped in shock were actually pausing before starting to beat in perfect synchrony with others. Some blood ties were created not at birth but in moments of greatest need. And some families, the most precious ones, were formed not through conventional means, but through the extraordinary circumstances that revealed the depth of love possible between human beings who chose each other again and again, day after day, against all odds. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.